Imagine opening your monthly bill for a tool you use every single day, only to find the number is not what you expected. Now imagine that number is not double, not triple, but nearly 30 times higher than what you signed up for. This is not a hypothetical scenario plucked from a tech thriller. It is happening right now to thousands of developers around the world. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a quiet pricing change turned into one of the biggest tech controversies of the year. What makes this story even more unsettling is that almost nobody saw it coming until their own bill landed in their inbox. There was no big warning campaign, no countdown clock, no clear signal that the rules of the game were about to change overnight. People simply woke up one morning to a tool they trusted charging them like never before. Stick around, because the explanation behind this gets more interesting the deeper you go. Before we go further, if you care about how AI companies are quietly reshaping the tools you depend on, hit that subscribe button right now. We break down stories like this one before they hit the mainstream headlines, and you do not want to miss the next one. Turn on notifications too, because some of these AI pricing shifts move fast and disappear from the news cycle just as quickly. Now let's get into exactly what happened, why it happened, and why so many people are calling it a joke. GitHub Copilot has been one of the most popular AI coding assistants in the world, used by millions of developers inside Microsoft's ecosystem. For years, it ran on a simple flat-rate subscription model that developers could budget for without thinking twice. A pro plan cost $10 a month, a business plan cost $19 per user, and an enterprise plan came in at $39 per user. That predictability was part of why so many teams trusted it as a daily tool inside their workflow. For solo developers and small startups especially, that flat $10 price was a quiet promise of stability in an industry that changes by the week. Teams built entire workflows and budgets around the assumption that their AI assistant would always cost roughly the same amount, no matter how heavily they used it. Some companies even rolled Copilot access into every new hire's onboarding without a second thought, because the cost was small and predictable. That sense of security is exactly what made the next announcement feel like such a betrayal. On June 1st, 2026, that predictability disappeared overnight, without much warning to the people who relied on it most. Microsoft switched every single plan, free, Pro, Pro Plus, Business, and Enterprise, from flat-rate subscriptions to token-based billing. This new system runs on something called GitHub AI credits, where 1 credit equals 1 cent of actual usage. In theory, it sounds simple, but in practice it opened the door to bills nobody saw coming. Token-based billing means you are charged for exactly what you consume, down to every single request your AI assistant processes. When a developer uses a high-compute reasoning model for something like a complex code refactor, the actual cost behind the scenes can be far higher than people assume. A single agentic coding session where the AI plans, writes, and tests code across multiple steps can burn through $30 to $40 in credits alone. That is 3 to 4 times an entire month's allotment for someone who was only paying $10 under the old plan. The real danger hides in a feature most casual users never even think about: sub-agents. Modern agentic coding tools do not just answer one question at a time anymore. They often spin up several smaller AI processes working in parallel to finish a task faster. Each one of those sub-agents consumes its own share of tokens, quietly multiplying the total cost of a single request behind the scenes. A developer might click one button expecting a simple fix, without realizing that button just triggered dozens of background processes, each adding its own line to the final bill. The most jaw-dropping example came from a developer whose monthly bill jumped from $29 to roughly $750 under the new system. That is not a typo, and it is not an isolated complaint buried in some obscure forum. TechCrunch covered the backlash directly, confirming that frustration was spreading fast across Reddit, Hacker News, and X within days of the switch. For many developers, this was the moment a helpful tool quietly turned into a financial trap. And that $750 story was far from alone, with similar screenshots and billing statements flooding developer forums within hours of each other. Some users reported automated agentic workflows running overnight, racking up charges while they slept without any alert warning them to stop. Others described feeling trapped, since pausing or downgrading mid-cycle did nothing to undo the charges that had already piled up. The sheer speed and scale of these complaints turned a pricing update into a full-blown trending topic within a single week. The reaction online was immediate, loud, and almost universally angry, with the phrase, "what a joke," becoming shorthand for the entire situation. Developers began accusing Microsoft of designing the product to encourage heavy token usage long before flipping the billing switch. The argument goes like this: features were built that made it easier to spawn dozens, sometimes hundreds, of sub-agents working in parallel, all quietly consuming tokens in the background. Once people got comfortable using those features, the pricing model changed and let the bill catch up to the very behavior it had encouraged. This accusation matters because it reframes the entire story from a simple price increase into something closer to a trust issue. If a company builds tools that reward heavier usage, then later charges by usage, the timing alone raises uncomfortable questions. Was the flat rate era simply a strategy to get developers deeply hooked into a workflow before the real cost was revealed? Microsoft has not directly addressed that specific accusation, which has only fueled more speculation rather than calming it. Interestingly, this backlash erupted just one day before Microsoft's own Build 2026 conference kicked off in San Francisco. At that event, Microsoft unveiled its own homegrown AI models, including a coding-focused model designed specifically for GitHub Copilot. Many analysts saw this as a direct response to the billing controversy, an attempt to offer a cheaper in-house alternative to expensive third-party models. Whether that move calms the backlash or simply shifts the cost conversation elsewhere remains to be seen. Microsoft's response to the backlash has been fairly direct, even if it has not satisfied many of the people affected. Their core argument is that the old flat-rate model was simply unsustainable given how much compute modern AI coding sessions actually require. Running advanced reasoning models is expensive, and subsidizing unlimited use at $10 a month was never going to last forever. From their perspective, token-based billing is not a punishment. It is just an honest reflection of real costs. There is a reasonable case buried inside that argument, even if the rollout handled it poorly. Frontier AI models cost enormous amounts of money to run, and someone always ends up paying for that compute somewhere along the chain. The real criticism is not necessarily that usage-based pricing exists, but that it arrived suddenly with little transparency and minimal tools to help developers predict their own costs in advance. A company switching pricing models without giving users a way to forecast their bill is asking for exactly this kind of backlash. To understand why this happened now, it helps to zoom out and look at the wider AI industry in 2026. AI-linked debt used to fund massive data centers and compute infrastructure was projected to nearly double this year, reaching hundreds of billions of dollars. Every company building frontier AI models is under pressure to make their compute spending sustainable, and that pressure eventually trickles down to the end user. GitHub Copilot's billing shock is simply one of the first visible cracks in a much larger financial story playing out across the entire AI sector. Industry watchers have started calling this period the AI cost reckoning, a phase where the true price of running powerful models can no longer be hidden behind cheap introductory subscriptions. For years, companies absorbed massive losses just to get users hooked on AI tools, treating the real cost almost like a marketing expense. That phase appears to be ending, and GitHub Copilot may simply be the first major name brave or reckless enough to make the shift publicly. If that theory holds, this will not be the last AI subscription you see jump in price without much warning. This story matters far beyond GitHub Copilot because it reveals a pattern that may repeat across the entire AI industry. As AI tools become smarter and more autonomous, The actual computing cost behind every interaction keeps climbing in the background. Companies that subsidize those costs to attract early users are now facing pressure to make pricing match reality. That likely means more surprise bills, more public backlash, and more difficult conversations between AI companies and the developers who depend on them. It is not just developers who should be paying attention to this story either. Anyone using an AI subscription for writing, design, video editing, or research should treat this as an early warning sign. The same compute pressures driving Copilot's pricing shift exist behind almost every AI product you currently use, regardless of the industry it serves. The tools that feel cheap and unlimited today may not stay that way for much longer. If you are currently using GitHub Copilot or any similar AI coding assistant, this is your sign to actually read the billing details closely. Pay attention to how many sub-agents a feature spins up and how often you are running long, multi-step agentic sessions. Setting usage alerts or spending caps, if the platform allows it, can prevent a surprise bill from sneaking up on you. The age of flat, predictable AI subscriptions may be quietly coming to an end, and staying informed is now part of using these tools responsibly. Beyond personal caution, this is also a moment for the wider developer community to demand more transparency from the companies building these tools. Clear, upfront cost estimates before running an agentic task would solve much of this frustration before it ever starts. Real-time usage dashboards, hard spending limits, and advance warnings before major pricing shifts are not unreasonable asks. Until companies build those safeguards by default, the responsibility for avoiding a shocking bill is unfairly placed on the user alone. What started as a quiet pricing update has turned into one of the clearest warnings yet about where AI tool pricing is heading. Developers trusted a system that promised simplicity and instead found themselves staring at bills that felt impossible to explain. Whether Microsoft adjusts course or holds firm, this moment has already changed how people think about unlimited AI subscriptions. The real question now is which AI company makes this same mistake next, and how their users will react when it happens. If this story opened your eyes to how fast AI pricing can shift under your feet, make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next one. Drop a comment below and tell us if you have been hit by a surprise AI bill, because your story might be featured in our next video. Hit the like button if you want more deep dives into the AI industry's biggest hidden stories before they become mainstream news. We will see you in the next video, where we uncover another AI story that the headlines have not fully explained yet.